Hey, what's up? Just want to thank you guys for watching our channel. Please hit that subscribe button. I feel like there was a decent amount of chatter about your team's defense dropping off last year.
Yeah.
You still ended up with the number 2 defense in the regular season. What were the areas where, you look, I'm sure you watched a ton of film on last year as you prepare for this season, but like, what were the areas where you're like, all right, these are the things we didn't do well?
So again, it starts with me. Like so when you talk about collecting data, when I got the job, the final line of data that I came from, this has been a top 5 defense since I've been here. We know how to do that. Our offense has fluctuated throughout the season, throughout fourth quarters. It's fluctuated up and down since I've been here. So can we keep this stable? Like, can we be top 5 in defense like we have been even before I got here? And then can we like weaponize the offense? And then can we get to a situation where like super well balanced? So that was kind of like my thought. And so like it failed at times because of my lack of emphasis, because of my stubbornness to just be like, why do I have to talk about that? We should just do it. And so, I learned that about myself. But then I think where we weren't good was we put two things. We didn't force turnovers and we didn't have a curveball. And that's what I learned about coaching in the playoffs. I learned 2 things in the playoffs, and really at like the end of game playoff things is analytics do go out the window in the playoffs because the sample size is much smaller. And so you have to find a better balance of like, this is what makes sense, but you also have to do this. And so that's kind of like that's like the number one thing I took from last year was that balance, right? Like I think they go out the window at some point. And then the second thing is like, you have to have a curveball. And for 3 years, our curveball, we didn't have one. It was just like switch, guard the ball, and individual defense. And that was better 2 years ago than last year. But you have to be able to go to something different during the game that changes the momentum. And it's really, really hard to just switch all the time. It puts a ton of pressure on your team. And so I would say we got to do a better job of forcing turnovers, and we have to we got to emphasize, got to force turnovers. We have to have a curveball.
Interesting. I was going to ask you before you gave the
but I love
the
defense.
jazz. I know you love defense.
That's the only thing I could do. So that's why I like
Joe. I mean,
I sucked at everything.
2010
else.
Final Four. Duke won. I remember.
So I got to tell you this funny Duke story. So 2006, we go to the Sweet 16. We beat Duke in DC, and me being me, like ornery, idiot kid at times. Like, we're never going to play Duke again. Like, I don't even belong here. Like, we have a chance to go to the Sweet 16. Like, grew up in Rhode Island. My teammate comes up to me and is like, I'll give you $100 if you slap the floor in front of Duke's bench at any point in time during the game. And I was like, done, I'm doing that. And so at some point during that game, like I think we go on a run, and I'm right in front of Duke's bench, slap the floor, Greg Paulus drives right by me for a layup. By me.
I would actually like to know if, like, there's probably some wacko Duke fan, and I mean that in an endearing way, by the way, like just a true crazy who would be willing to go back to like the 1980s and find every televised Duke game, record how many, like every possession with a floor slap, and then what the points per possession on defense. Because it always felt like every time we slapped the floor, somebody would score.
I definitely felt that.
Yeah.
I definitely felt that.
For Jayson and Jaylen, again, guys, Jayson's last 2 years, first team All-NBA. Jaylen was All-NBA last year as well. What's the next step for them in the evolution of their careers?
Yeah, I think one, like just continue to grow as leaders and as people and as players, which like they don't get the credit they deserve for who they are as people. I really believe that. Like there's like 3 reasons why I came to the NBA. Number one was I feel like there's the most misunderstood company in the world. And everybody just thinks because you make a ton of money and you play a really cool sport that like you're just supposed to be a certain type of way. And those 2 guys, amongst our whole team, but like those 2 are as high character as you can possibly get. And it starts there. Like that's why I really believe every single year we have a chance to win, because of the character of our best players. And then their work ethic. Like they're always opening to grow. And I think the biggest area of growth for them, with our roster now is like how do they express who they are as leaders? And it's going to look different for each of them. Like you saw Tatum say the other day, like I'm not Kevin Garnett. He's not, but he's just as good of a leader in a different way. And so we have to create an environment to where he feels the freedom to lead in that way. And Jaylen took on ownership and leadership with his defense in the Philly series. And so like taking that as the leadership step of like, okay, like I know I can do this. I'm going to be this now. And they both have publicly said it, like this is what they want to do. So like they grow every day, which makes it really special to work here.
I said this during the playoffs last year, and I didn't mean this in like a negative way towards either of them, but I talked about there's an inherent redundancy because they're both big wings who can shoot and handle. There's not a lot. I mean, you could, I guess, run pick and rolls with them, but there's not a lot you can do as like a tandem, right? Yeah. Like a 2-man game, right? So like I think I used the example of LeBron and AD or Steph and Draymond or Jokic and Murray, right? No, and so like,
it'd be like
are there creative ways like where the two of them could like be in action together outside of the V set, which is, you know,
the horns?
Yeah. Generally speaking, yeah, I guess you call it horns. I called it V or V2, whatever, but the horn set, right? So generally speaking, I think most of the time you run that, the two of them are one of the three people involved in that.
Two of the three. So I think there are creative ways, which I think we got to last year, which I feel like that's why we saw a really great version of Jaylen, was his growth as a pick and roll ball handler, like his growth as a screener last year. I think Tatum's like, he grows as a screener every day. He's getting comfortable handling and pick and roll. So like, I think there are creative ways, but I also think you have to have a curveball. You have to have something else to go to. And I think that's what the addition of Porzingis will give us, is like our shot selection is going to look different at times this year. And if you look at our late game execution, it's not that we're not trying not to execute. It's that we didn't have a way to change the momentum of the game. Because like you have to be able to post, you have to get to the free throw line, you have to make really hard shots. And so I think with the addition of Porzingis, he will take the pressure off of those two guys and allow the space and freedom for them to do what they do. Also give us a curveball of posting, nail ISO. And so it just changes what we're going to be able to do. But I think it frees them. And I think he's going to make a big difference for us.